In this video, we're going to be talking about great content ideas for when you're working with buyers. Hey, what's up guys? Austin here with Park Place. I hope you are doing well. In this video, we're going to be talking about, well, pretty much everything you need to know about coming up with great content ideas for working with buyers. Let's go ahead and jump right into the content of the video, which is coming up with great content for attracting buyers to come and work with you. Now, if you look at everyone else's content and you kind of see what people are talking about, a lot of times they're kind of just talking about the same thing over and over again, which is why their service is great, and I guess it kind of really comes down to that, and that's what a lot of people talk about. But really, that's not the main thing that a buyer is actually looking for, or any client is really looking for, is just to hear how great you are in a way. Okay, so as a brief example, my co-founder and I, Garth, we actually just got done doing a listing appointment for a great property. We locked the listing down, it all went good. When we went in and started doing the listing appointment, we started going through our presentation like we usually do, and I think that that's really important because, you know, you do have to do a good job and you should be proud about what you're doing, and so that's great. But that's kind of where it stops for most people. We quickly realized in this listing appointment that it actually was going to take something a little bit better, a little bit deeper in order to lock this client down, because to be honest with you, this client really did expect perfection, and of course we delivered it in terms of our marketing plan and what we do and all that kind of stuff. But really what they were looking for was something a little bit further, and we had to dive into a little bit deeper into our conversation in order to figure out exactly what that was. Can you guess what it was? Well, probably not, so I'll go ahead and just tell you. It was actually a pain point that they were struggling and dealing with. They had worked with agents in the past that did a terrible job. The transactions took 5 times longer than you probably have ever heard of, and they just didn't do a good job. They stopped caring, they weren't committed, and they really felt like they went through an entire transaction with somebody that they could not lean on and have that individual handle that transaction from start to finish successfully. And so in our conversation, we quickly shifted the conversation from talking about what we do, why we do it, and all that kind of stuff, to talking about how we're going to take that pain that they've had in the past away from them so that they don't have to deal with it. And I think that the same thing is true when we're coming up with great content ideas, whether it's buyers or sellers. I'm putting together some content right now in regards to training some of our Park Place agents on buyer-related stuff. So I'm talking about buyers right now, but surely this can be used for really working with any type of client, and honestly in any type of industry. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first thing we want to do is we want to identify what is the dream outcome for our client. And when you're working with a buyer, in particular, maybe a first or second time home buyer, a lot of times it's going to be buying their dream home effortlessly, without being stressed or breaking the bank. So they want to buy their dream home, so that's the plus that they want to do it. They don't want it to be too hard, or they don't want to be too stressed out, and they definitely don't want to break the bank when they're doing it, right? And so instead of only making content related to how great your service is, and I'm sure that it is great, throw in a lot of this stuff, because you're going to start to see that people will come out of the woodworks when you start speaking to them specifically. You might have somebody that's following you right now and they've kind of seen some of your stuff, but maybe one of these bullet points is something that they're really worried about, and that's stopping them from actually reaching out to you because they're unsure of if they should even reach out to you or not, and they don't want to put themselves out there only to let themselves down, right? And so that's why a lot of people kind of stay on the fence, and they might not even ever reach out, and then little do you know, somebody randomly runs into them at an open house, or a friend bumps into them, and then they end up working with them, and that potential client that you didn't even know about is gone. And so we want to try to eliminate that when we're coming up with content online. So something that a lot of people are going to have a concern about is not having a down payment. So you can make content related about, hey, how to get into your first home or second home, even if you're not sure that you have enough of a down payment to put down on a home. And then you can maybe go in and talk more about some of the available financing programs that are available in your marketplace, and kind of spend your time eliminating some of the disbelief that they're having internally that they have to have a 10 or a 20% down payment. In a lot of cases, they might think that in order to buy their first or second home, right? And so you can help eliminate that by making content related to that. The next is having bad credit. A lot of people do end up a lot of times having bad credit and struggling with that. You can make content about how you've helped a client go from not having the best credit, you can even say the credit score if you have an actual real life situation, and getting them up into the mid sixes, the sevens, whatever the case might be, and getting them up there really quickly. And then talk about how you got them plugged in with a great lender. They had a great credit repair program. It didn't cost them a bunch of money. It didn't make their credit score worse. A lot of people are worried about getting into some of these programs because they think they're just going to make their credit score worse. So eliminating that disbelief right there, it's like a micro disbelief. The next one is that it's going to take too much time. Now, as a brief example, I just got done working with some first-time buyers, and this is how fast that it happened. Somebody reached out to me on Messenger. He said, hey, my sister's thinking about buying a house. I met with her and her husband. I walked them through exactly what the buying process looked like. I answered all their questions. I mean, I went into great detail. There was no stone left unturned in that conversation. Well, they were already pre-approved because they were actually working with a lender, and I actually ended up so they were pre-approved. They were working with a lender. They sent me a house that they liked. After that, they signed a buyer agreement with me. They sent me a house that they liked. I said, we need to go see this right now. We went out there. We saw it. It turns out it was the first house we saw together, and we got it pending like 36 hours, 48 hours later, and they closed on it, and they were in it in under 30 days. So that's really how fast the process can be when they're working with you, an amazing agent, and you just need to articulate that to them. The other thing that they're thinking about is too much effort. It's going to be hard. So, I mean, in a way, I could kind of use that last story that I just shared with you, and I can actually turn that into just focusing instead of the timeline. So the last one was focused on the timeline. I can take that same story and I can shift it into the effort. Like, hey, they were in a house in under 30 days. They met with me once. We looked at one house, and that was it. I handled absolutely everything. They didn't have to deal with anything after that. And I communicated them the entire process. So boom, that takes out the effort side. Again, I could use the same story to talk about stress. Like, they didn't have to be stressed out. We didn't have to put in 15 offers on different properties and only to lose out on all of them and all that kind of stuff. And so then I could take that same story and pin it into that different angle. So a lot of times you can take, so if you've only worked with a couple clients as an example, you can take that story and you can turn it into lots of different pieces of content and come in from some of these angles, really to help eliminate some of the things that people are struggling with their belief system on the inside. Not enough time in the day. Maybe it's somebody that works a lot or whatever the case might be. You can talk about maybe, hey, I had a client, I met with them, they really were serious about it, but they just were busy with their job. They couldn't get out there on the weekends. Maybe they had to work weekends. So what we did is I actually met with them once in person, and then after that I actually did video tours for them. And when we found the one that they really, really liked, they actually came out to the property, they saw it in person, we wrote up the offer, and boom. So that's a great story you could tell right there. Okay, so the next one is not having enough time between now and when their next rental agreement lease type thing ends. And so what you can talk about, again, just going back to that one of the last stories that I shared with you, talking about how we did it in under 30 days and they were into their house. Now, I don't recommend you just take the same story and talk about it over and over again, but it's just kind of funny that we're seeing all of these angles that we can take out of just one story. This is really good news because this means that, I mean, if you only have 4 stories, I mean, you have like 50, 60 pieces of content right there because you can come in with these different angles and then just cycle through them. I don't know where to start, and this is where a lot of people are, especially when they're buying their first home. And so talking about, hey, if you're thinking about buying your first home, but you're not sure where to start, ... So that's literally how you would start it off. You're calling out this specific individual in your audience, whether you're running ads or whether you're running just organic social media posts or whether you're sending out an email. I mean, it could be really anything, but calling out in that first 2 sentences who this message is for is going to hopefully draw them in. You can hopefully satisfy one of their disbeliefs that they're having and articulate that if you work with me, you won't have this pain point to deal with. We're just trying to get rid of all of these perceived problems. And then unsure of market conditions. This is actually a pretty easy one to fight because I know a lot of people are saying like, oh my gosh, the market's so high, blah, 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 blah. And you know, if it's a first time home buyer and they're putting like 3 or 5% down, like it really does not matter as much because what really matters to them, since they're putting in not that much capital down, what happens is they actually are getting a good deal a lot of times on the interest rate. And so even though the prices might be high, the monthly payment actually comes into play a big factor on how much interest they're actually giving the bank. So having good interest rates, which is what we typically have right now, right, and in this current time we have good interest rates, so you can actually make a video explaining to them like, hey, prices are high. It's true. If you're cashing out a house right now, like, you might not necessarily want to do that. You might want to wait a while. Who knows, right? I mean, we can't really predict the market, but who knows? But if you're a first or second time home buyer, it don't matter, right? And so then you can explain to them how interest rate works, and maybe even like, pull up a thing and pull out a mortgage calculator and show them the AM schedule, right? I'm not even going to say that word because it's so big and it's so late right now. But anyways, guys, I hope this video brought a little bit of value to you. Go out and make lots of great content. If you guys need anything from us, or if you guys have special video requests, drop them in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.